In a quiet suburb of Boulder, Colorado town, the morning after Christmas should have been peaceful, but inside one home, a secret waited in the dark. A mystery was born that would capture the nation's attention and haunt its collective memory. A secret that would 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey had a crown on her head, lights on her stage, and a future ahead of her until the day after Christmas 1996, when she was found dead in her own home. Welcome to our in-depth exploration of the JonBenét Ramsey case. Over the next few minutes, we'll journey through the evidence, the theories, and the unanswered questions that continue to shroud this tragic story in darkness. But as we peel back the layers, keep in mind, sometimes the first clue is not the last, and every detail might be a foreshadowing of what's to come. December 26, 1996, Boulder, Colorado. The Ramsey family home is still wrapped in holiday warmth, lights twinkling, gifts opened. Home that once echoed with laughter and the promise of a bright future, a chilling discovery shattered the tranquility. Just before 6 a.m., Patsy Ramsey makes a frantic 911 call. She says her 6-year-old daughter, JonBenét, is missing. A 2.5-page ransom note had been left on the back stairs demanding exactly $118,000, the same as John Ramsey's recent work bonus. A kidnapping? That's what it looked like at first. But when police arrived, they made a critical mistake. They didn't secure the scene. Friends came over and went. Family walked through. Hours passed. Then, at 1 p.m., John Ramsey, JonBenét's father, searching the basement with a friend, made a horrifying discovery. JonBenét's lifeless body. She had been strangled with a homemade garrote. Her skull fractured, duct tape over her mouth. The scene wasn't just chilling, it looked staged, and the mystery began. Was this really a kidnapping gone wrong, or something else entirely? As investigators combed through the scene, every detail, from the cryptic ransom note to the disarray of the room, whispered a secret. This was no ordinary crime. Even in that initial chaos, subtle hints suggested that the truth might be far more complicated than it appeared. What should have been a messy scene was oddly meticulous. The scene didn't add up. The ransom note was over 2 pages long, unusual for a real kidnapping. It was written using the Ramseys' own notepad and pen from inside the house. The phrasing was dramatic, almost theatrical, signed SBTC, Victory. But no known group ever took responsibility. A basement window was broken, but untouched cobwebs suggested it hadn't been used. A suitcase sat under it, perhaps for escape, or perhaps for staging. Even in those early hours, some details whispered of hidden secrets. Could the note have been a red herring intentionally planted to misdirect the investigation? And what of the evidence that seemed too perfect, too staged, to be the work of an intruder? In retrospect, these were the first subtle signals that the real story might be more sinister than anyone imagined. From the beginning, the case felt split, 2 paths diverging. One led to the intruder, the other, heartbreakingly, toward someone inside. 2 major theories formed and divided America, each with evidence, each with questions. Some believed the tragedy was accidental, a moment of anger or a sibling dispute, that it was covered up to protect someone, maybe Burke, JonBenét's 9-year-old brother, maybe even the parents themselves. The note's odd language, the matching bonus amount, the handwriting, it all pointed inward. Yet, no definitive proof ever surfaced. Others argue someone broke in, the unidentified male DNA on JonBenét's clothing, a potential stun gun mark, a boot print in the basement, a broken basement window, a suitcase under that window. Could a stranger have crept in, murdered a child, and slipped away? Detective Lou Smith, who joined the case later, believed this wasn't a family crime. It was the work of a predator. There were anomalies in the crime scene that defied simple explanation. Every piece of evidence pointed to a scenario that was meticulously constructed. Sometimes what appears as clear evidence is only the beginning of the story. a subtle nudge towards deeper, darker truths that lurk beneath the surface. These expert insights only add layers to the mystery. They remind us that in crime, as in life, every answer raises new questions, hinting that the final truth is still waiting to be uncovered. Over the years, the investigation into JonBenét's death has seen twists and turns that only deepened the enigma. As investigators re-examined evidence, new details emerged. One such clue was the meticulous nature of the ransom note. Its composition and phrasing hinted at an intelligence and forethought that seemed at odds with a random act of violence. JonBenét wasn't just a victim. She became a media symbol, a child beauty queen, a face made famous in grief. The Boulder police were criticized for mishandling the case. The media turned the Ramseys into villains. They were tried in the court of public opinion, accused, harassed, followed, even after being cleared. 12 years later, in 2008, new DNA testing formally cleared all Ramsey family members. But by then, public trust was already shattered. The damage was done. The mystery remained. The house at 755 15th Street was sold. Its owners changed. Its address was altered, but it hasn't escaped its past. It stands in Boulder like a ghost, silent, cold, and full of unanswered questions. The Boulder police, under fire for missteps, still call this an open case, still say they're working on it. But leads have dried up, suspects have faded, and questions still echo, and decades later, no one's been charged. JonBenét's story shaped a generation of crime media. It exposed flaws in our justice system, our press, and ourselves. Some believe justice was fumbled on day one, that the truth may have been standing in plain sight, and we looked away. Some say the investigation failed the moment the scene was compromised. Others say the killer was never even in the house. She was a child, with ribbons in her hair and dreams on stage, and she never got justice. JonBenét Ramsey was more than a headline, more than a mystery. She was a child, and her story still echoes through time. Her murder became more than a case. It became a cultural landmark. It changed how police handle crime scenes. It sparked debate about media bias and the obsession with perfect victims. The ransom note ended with victory, SBTC, but the case brought no victory, only silence and questions still unanswered. As we reach the end of our journey through one of America's most confounding mysteries, we are left with more questions than answers. The case of JonBenét Ramsey remains an intricate tapestry of evidence, theory, and emotion, a story that continues to be written with each new discovery, each new theory that emerges from the shadows. But remember, every conclusion we draw today may only be the beginning of another chapter. Like a dark premonition, the unanswered questions serve as a foreshadowing of future revelations. What if the next clue hidden in plain sight is the one that finally unravels the mystery? I invite you to share your thoughts and theories. What do you believe truly happened in that Boulder home? Was the killer someone she knew, or a stranger who vanished into the dark, a cover-up, or something else entirely? Could the final piece of the puzzle still be waiting to be discovered? Your insights, comments, and discussions are a vital part of keeping this story alive. What's your theory? Drop it in the comments. Because justice for JonBenét isn't done yet. And if you want to keep digging into the world's most perplexing crimes, subscribe, like, and stay curious. Because sometimes the truth isn't hidden, it's just ignored.